Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're taking a deep dive into an absolutely monumental event in history, the night journey of the Prophet Muhammad, also known as Al-Isra wal Miraj. Now, if you're coming at this from outside the Islamic faith, this is specifically designed for you. We're going to break down the multiple angles of a single night that literally shaped human culture and Islamic history. We'll look at how it's understood, how it's debated, and why it's so revered. All right, let's jump right in. So picture this. How can a man travel all the way from Mecca to Jerusalem, ascend up through 7 layers of heaven, and return home before his bed even gets cold? We have to start with this ultimate mystery of time and speed. According to the sources, this journey completely shatters the known laws of physics. The story tells us the trip was so impossibly fast that when Muhammad returned from the very edges of the universe, his bed was still warm. How was that even possible? Well, to figure out how a physical or maybe spiritual body covered that kind of distance, we need to look at the vehicle he used and what was happening in his life at the time. Section 1, The Secret of the Swift Night Journey, Breaking the Boundaries of Space. Let's rewind a bit to the year 621 CE. We're in Mecca, and Muhammad is about 10 years into his prophethood. And honestly, this is a really tough time for him. He's facing intense public rejection and mockery from his own tribe. But it's exactly in this moment of deep isolation that the angel Gabriel suddenly appears to him in the night. And Gabriel brings something totally out of this world, kicking off a journey that would take his mission from a local struggle to a universal message. Which brings us to the secret of how he traveled so fast. Gabriel brought a creature called Al-Buraq. Our sources describe it as this miraculous, lightning-fast, white-winged steed. It was completely unknown to the natural world, sized somewhere between a donkey and a mule. Just by looking at it, you know this isn't going to be your average road trip. This is a miraculous event driven entirely by divine will. And there's this amazing quote from the sources that perfectly illustrates Al-Buraq's speed. Its step reaches the edge of its vision. Just imagine that for a second. A creature that covers the entire distance it can see in a single stride. That supernatural speed is what let Muhammad and Gabriel bridge the massive geographic gap between Mecca and Jerusalem in basically the blink of an eye. It's a complete suspension of space and time as we know it, and it really sets the stage for the highly symbolic events that unfold on Earth before they even look up to the sky. Moving to Section 2, Jerusalem and the Test of Pure Milk, a symbolic crossroads of faith. The first part of this trip, known as Al-Isra, wraps up when they arrive in Jerusalem, specifically at Al-Aqsa. And what happens next is a profoundly unifying moment. Muhammad dismounts, ties Al-Buraq to a wall, and then leads all the great prophets of the past, we're talking Abraham, Moses, Jesus, in a shared prayer. For an outside observer, this detail is huge. It positions Muhammad not as some rogue founder starting from scratch, but as a continuation and unifier of a long monotheistic tradition. And right after this prayer, he faces a massive test. We call this the test of the drinks. Gabriel offers Muhammad a choice between vessels holding different liquids, the most notable being wine and milk. Muhammad chooses the milk. And according to the texts, Gabriel tells him that if he had chosen the wine, his followers would have actually gone astray and lost their path. The milk, on the other hand, held a deeply vital spiritual meaning for the entire future of the faith. By picking the milk, Gabriel declared that Muhammad had chosen fitra. Fitra is the pure, original, and wholesome human nature, exactly as God created it. So this wasn't just a simple dietary choice, right? It was a major spiritual declaration. It established this core idea that Islam aligns perfectly with pure, uncorrupted human logic and nature. It essentially proved Muhammad's spiritual readiness for the crazy cosmic ascent that was about to begin. All right, Section 3, Ascending the 7 Heavens, the Al-Miraj progression. Having finished his earthly journey and passed the test of purity, Muhammad starts heading up. Guided by Gabriel, he moves vertically through the cosmic realms, literally breaking through the barriers of the physical universe. This ascent is highly structured, and the people he encounters along the way are deeply significant. As we track this ascent, you can see how the journey beautifully builds on itself. In each of the 7 heavens, Muhammad meets a major prophet. He starts with Adam in the first heaven, then meets Jesus and John the Baptist in the second. He keeps moving up, meeting Joseph, Idris, Aaron, Moses in the 6th, and finally Abraham in the 7th. This progression is incredible because it unites that historical family tree of monotheistic prophets. It confirms that his message is universal and prepares him for his final destination. At the very peak of the 7th heaven, Muhammad reaches Sidrat al-Muntaha, the mystical lote tree. Our sources describe it as this legendary cosmological station wrapped in mystery, shadow, and divine light. It is the absolute ultimate boundary of creation. It's so sacred that no other created being, not even the angel Gabriel, can pass beyond it. And it's here, in this quiet, unparalleled closeness to the divine, that the most practical legacy of the entire night journey is actually forged. This takes us to Section 4, Forging the Daily Prayers, bringing the mystical into daily life. It is honestly fascinating how the most otherworldly, supernatural experience in the Islamic tradition directly created the most grounded, everyday practice for over 1 billion people today. Right at this boundary of the universe, Muhammad gets a direct command from God, and this command would become the central pillar of the faith. But get this, the original command was absolutely staggering. God instructed that the believers must observe 50 daily prayers. 50! Just think about the sheer weight of that for a second. The amount of time and physical energy that would take is massive, which obviously reflects the magnitude of meeting the divine. But as Muhammad heads back down, he runs into someone who knows a thing or two about leading a community. On his descent, he bumps into Moses in the sixth heaven. And Moses, drawing on his own long, let's say, difficult history of leading people, gives some highly practical advice. He basically says, look, 50 prayers is going to be an impossible burden for regular people to handle. He warmly tells Muhammad, you need to back up and negotiate. What follows is this amazing back and forth. Muhammad returns to God 9 separate times, and with every single trip, the requirement gets gradually chipped away. Ultimately, the number is knocked all the way down to 5 daily prayers. But here is the brilliant spiritual catch. While the physical burden was reduced to a very manageable 5, God decreed that the spiritual reward for doing them would stay equal to the original 50. It's a profound compromise, forging a direct, daily link between the ordinary life of a believer down on earth and the mystical heights of the night journey. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, the mystery of the warm bed. Was this a journey of the body or the soul? After receiving this decree, Muhammad is instantly returned to Mecca, ending the trip on that exact same night. And we're right back to our opening puzzle. His bed was still warm. For centuries, scholars have fiercely debated the true nature of this journey. Did he physically teleport through space, or was this just the ultimate spiritual vision? When you look at the sources, they really highlight 2 main perspectives, and it's important to understand both. First, you have the orthodox traditional view held by most mainstream scholars. They argue this was a literal physical journey of both body and soul while he was fully awake. On the flip side, you have the mystical view. This is often favored by Sufi traditions and some modern thinkers who interpret it as a profound, out-of-body spiritual vision where only his soul ascended. So why do traditionalists insist it was physical? Well, scholars like Al-Tabari point to some compelling evidence. First off, when people doubted Muhammad, he was able to give highly detailed, accurate descriptions of Jerusalem's architecture to merchants who had actually been there. Second, the texts specifically say he physically tied al-Buraq to a wall. I mean, why would a spirit need an animal, let alone a rope? But arguably, their strongest point is the reaction of the Quraysh tribe. They mocked him relentlessly. Traditionalists point out that if he just claimed he had a really vivid dream, the locals wouldn't have cared enough to deny it so vehemently. They mocked him precisely because he claimed his physical body made this impossible trip. And yet, that mystery of the warm bed leaves the door open for a really fascinating middle ground. A lot of scholars argue that trying to strictly label it as purely physical or purely spiritual kind of misses the whole point of a divine miracle. Think of it like a concept in theoretical physics. It's an event where the laws of nature and time were just miraculously suspended. It happened in a moment entirely outside the normal flow of time. A singular, mind-bending instant where the rigid boundaries between heaven and earth simply cease to exist. So let's wrap up with this thought. Does the actual physics of the journey matter more than its lasting impact? Whether you look at this as a literal, orthodox miracle, a deep Sufi spiritual awakening, or just a fascinating piece of world history, the outcome is exactly the same. This one mysterious night, with its tests of purity and its meetings with ancient prophets, still shapes the daily devotion and worldview of over 1 billion people today. It's a story that forever bridges the earthly with the divine. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.